This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Winter storm warning. Good afternoon. Welcome aboard. Snow emergency in ski country today as a blast of moisture-rich Arctic air dumps nearly a foot of snow on parts of western and central New York, as well as northwestern Pennsylvania. That wet turned white overnight, and the snow activity intensified early this morning. WGRZ meteorologist Dan Russell.
We've had a nice break, but just like that, we are definitely back into winter conditions, and this winter weather pattern, it's going to have some staying power. It's pretty much with us for the rest of the month, even into the first part of February.
For a lot of us, the morning commute was a slow go. A number of schools shut down today. While not everyone got in on the snow action, we're all feeling the cold today. Kevin Williams has that frigid forecast coming up. There's been another ice-involved shooting in Minneapolis. A federal agent shot an illegal immigrant from Venezuela in the leg last night after being threatened with a snow shovel. It happened during a targeted traffic stop. Former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker.
If there is any sort of weapon, it could be a vehicle, it could be a shovel, it could be a golf club, it could be whatever you use, a bat. If the agent feels that their life is in imminent danger of death or serious physical injury, then deadly force is justified.
Protesters threw rocks and fireworks at law enforcement following the shooting. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says to those demonstrators, knock it off.
For anyone that is taking the bait, stop. That is not helpful. Go home. We cannot counter Donald Trump's chaos with our own brand of chaos.
Last night's incident happened 12 miles from where 37-year-old Renee Good was killed in an ice-involved shooting last week. Iran's foreign minister claims the recent uprising in that Islamic country is dying down, and there are no plans to conduct any public hangings in retaliation for the anti-government protests. Still, national security expert Michael Allen thinks the U.S. needs to support these demonstrations as much as possible.
The regime has its back against the wall. This is a crucial moment in this would-be revolution, and I think the United States may need to get involved to put this to a tipping point.
Iranian refugee Eli Kohanen telling Fox News.
For 47 years since this radical Islamic regime grabbed power, they have the blood of hundreds and thousands of American service members on their hands. You're talking about the leading state sponsor of terrorism and undermining us at every turn for 47 years. The notion that this regime could turn now, this is no less significant than the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Thousands of protesters in Iran have been killed since the uprising started around Christmas time. Sweden, Denmark, Germany, and France all planning to send troops to Greenland as the U.S. continues its pressure campaign to acquire the world's largest island in the Arctic. The Danes, who control the territory, say Greenland is not for sale. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum says it would make a nice addition to these United States.
Think about Alaska, which we also purchased. These are like two bookends that protect North America.
Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio met yesterday at the White House with Denmark's foreign minister to discuss more the possible sale of Greenland. That territory, which is 3 times larger than the state of Texas, has about 50,000 year-long residents. President Trump welcomes Venezuela's opposition leader and 2025 Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado to the White House today. It comes a day after the U.S. Senate failed to rein in the president's war powers in Venezuela, much to the chagrin of Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
The chances of us getting into an endless war are even greater, because when the Republicans rubber stamp everything he does, the constraints go away.
The Trump administration and several GOP leaders are quick to point out that we are not at war with Venezuela. The country's former dictator, Nicolas Maduro, is awaiting trial in in New York on drug trafficking charges. He was captured in Caracas along with his wife in a covert law enforcement operation earlier this month. An ill astronaut returned to Earth early this morning from the International Space Station aboard a SpaceX capsule. The successful splashdown happened in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego. Mission Control had the play-by-play just after 3:30 a.m. our time.
On behalf of SpaceX and NASA, welcome home, Crew 11.
SpaceX Dragon, it's so good to be home.
The ill astronaut was part of a 4-person crew that wasn't due back on planet Earth till next month, but the medical emergency sped up their departure plans. It is, by the way, the first time in the 25-year history of the orbital outpost that an ISS mission had to be cut short due to sickness. Still to come on the Noon Report for a Thursday, Hochul takes on Trump, breaking ground on Micron. And who says there's no such thing as a free lunch? Brian Query reports after this.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams, tracking snow and bitter cold this afternoon. I'll have forecast details up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll check back then. Winter not even a month old yet, and already many communities across New York and Pennsylvania are reeling from a shortage of rock salt.
Salt is now becoming quite a commodity and very hard to get. Try and stay ahead of the salt shortage as much as possible.
David Ferguson of Ferguson Property Management in Rochester, New York.
Hopefully it doesn't come to the point where we have to have a hard conversation of, I'm out of salt, I can't get salt.
Ferguson tells Wham News that prices have doubled this year, and he's had to pass that cost along to his customers. Salt availability was a huge issue last winter and looks like it might be again this year. Groundbreaking is tomorrow for the new Micron plant in Clay, New York. It is the largest private investment in the history of New York, costing $100 billion over 20 years. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick will be on hand for Friday's ceremony. The massive semiconductor facility will produce its first computer chips by the end of the decade. 4 fabrication plants are being built in central New York and will create up to 50,000 jobs. Micron is about to get real in New York. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is promising legal action if the Trump White House makes good on a threat to pull federal funding from the Empire State come February 1st.
This is just a threat to intimidate states like New York into bowing into submission, and that is something we'll never do. So I say this, you touch any more money from the state of New York, we'll see you in court.
President Trump says he's pulling federal funding because New York's refusing to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement efforts.
They do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime and all of the other problems that come. So we're not making any payment to anybody that supports sanctuary cities.
New York receives about $100 billion in funding from the federal government every year. That's all on the chopping block come February 1st. It was standing room only last night for a 4-hour town hall meeting on ICE operations in Cheektowaga. Residents showed up to sound off against the show of federal force. The majority of speakers voiced opposition to ICE.
Do we want to be the next Minneapolis?
Every person on this council and in town leadership that does not push for an immediate and complete decoupling of our town from these agencies is complicit.
Captain Jeffrey Schmidt says Cheektowaga police are in no way cooperating with ICE.
We're not in support of those operations. We don't plan them. We're not with them. We are certainly not going out into our community trying to identify people with different color skin or who speak a different language for the purpose of deportation. All of those things are false.
Town Supervisor Brian Nowak.
We're not sending the police department to do the federal government's job in terms of immigration enforcement. Our officers aren't masking up and covering their names and throwing all their training by the wayside.
Protesters want the town to support a proposed state law called the New York for All Act, which would limit local police cooperation with ICE. Senate Minority Leader Rob Orton in Albany says that bill sets a dangerous precedent.
They come into police contact, sometimes for very serious offenses, and they don't feel that that person should be reported to federal immigration authorities. I don't know what to tell you.
Or it's promoting the Laken Riley Act, which is named after a Georgia nursing student who was murdered by an illegal immigrant. The Laken Riley Act, among other things, requires local police to cooperate with ICE. Pennsylvania Attorney General Dave Sunday is urging residents to be wary of the recent rise in utility-related scams. Sunday says scammers are posing as utility providers and accessing victims' personal information. This includes using fake utility websites to lure customers. Often they make fraudulent claims of missed payments to intimidate Pennsylvanians into parting ways with their hard-earned money. The AG says never give out personal information over the phone and access your utility website directly so you know that it is legitimate. That website should be provided on your bill. The Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission lists all the state's utility providers on its website. Universal free lunch and meal debt forgiveness could soon be reality in Pennsylvania public schools. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
Pennsylvania public school students have had free breakfast since 2023, and now lawmakers want to make free lunch universal as well. Democratic Representatives Nate Davidson and Emily Kincaid are sponsoring a bill that would guarantee free lunch for all students, regardless of income, and erase existing school meal debt. Supporters say students can't learn when they're hungry, and families should not be sent to collections over lunch bills. House Bill 180 is now in the Education Committee as lawmakers push to expand that effort statewide. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. Attention, job seekers in New York. If you're looking for work in a high-demand field, you could be able to go back to college for free. Students ages 25 to 55 will now get free tuition at SUNY schools to study careers like air traffic control or nursing. Governor Hochul's expanding the SUNY Reconnect program, which was created in July to attract more workers to fields like artificial intelligence and engineering. Some 11,000 New Yorkers have already enrolled. The students get tuition, books, fees, and supplies all paid for. If they pursue an associate degree in a high-demand field, you must be a resident of New York to qualify. Flu cases continue to surge across New York, and with that in mind comes the following warning from the state's top doc, Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald.
One of the things about flu is it's not just one disease. You can get flu more than once a season. Again, why it's important to have a flu vaccine, because the flu vaccine has multiple strains to protect you.
The CDC says the flu season is the most intense in more than 25 years. A second strain is now making the rounds. Experts say this year's outbreak is starting sooner and lasting longer than in previous years. Amherst, New York residents can expect to see helicopters flying around the next few days. New York State Electric and Gas is conducting low-flying inspections after recent storms. The helicopter patrols help identify potential hazards, such as uprooted trees, damaged poles, and downed wires. It's all in an effort to maintain grid safety and reliability. NYSEG says these inspections are routine. That utility, by the way, covers about 40% of the landmass in upstate New York. Those inspections will last through January 24th. And some Pennsylvania state lawmakers think there needs to be limits on AI use by minors. Family Life's Mark Webster.
Yeah, while the Trump administration wants to keep AI regulation at the federal level, a pair of Pennsylvania Democrats are backing a bill that would regulate AI usage among Pennsylvania kids and teens. The bill from Gene McNeil and Chris Pielli would require companies to verify a user's age, prohibit a minor from accessing or using an AI companion, and bar AI from soliciting minors to engage in, describe, or transmit explicit images. The lawmakers cite recent incidents in which the technology has encouraged troubled teens to pursue self-harm. Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you, Mark. Big news in Little League Baseball. Officials in Williamsport have announced players at all levels can now use pine tar on their baseball bats. For decades, Little League Baseball prohibited the substance despite its widespread use in the pros. It's used to improve bat grip. Another rule change this year will allow Little Leaguers to wear thumb protectors, just like the pros do. We've got more sports next. It's the 2-minute drill. on the family life. Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, big news coming out of New York. It's who the Giants are hiring as their next head coach. John Harbaugh and the G-Men are finalizing a deal to bring him to the Big Apple. According to reports, barring any unforeseen difficulties, the deal is expected to get done within the next day or two. On to the NBA. The Sacramento Kings have now won 3 straight following a 112-10 win over the New York Knicks. Final score not indicative of the way the Kings controlled this one, leading by as many as 25 points in the second half. Mikal Bridges was high scorer for New York with 19. The Nets have lost 5 in a row after falling to the Pelicans 116-113. In Philadelphia, Donovan Mitchell poured in 35 points to lead the Cavs' rout of the Sixers 133-107. Elsewhere, the Raptors, Bulls, Nuggets, and Clippers picked up wins. On the ice in Buffalo, Rasmus Dahlin scored a pair of power play goals, and he led the Sabres to their 14th win in 16 games, 5-2 over the Flyers. Matthias Samuelsson, Jack Quinn, and Ryan McLeod also found the back of the net. Josh Doan and Tage Thompson both had 2 assists for Buffalo, who only had 14 shots on goal in the contest. At the Garden in New York, the Senators dominated the Rangers 8-4. It was 4-zip after 1 and 6-1 entering the third period as Ottawa handed New York its 5th straight defeat. The Devils and Golden Knights, your other winners. One baseball note, Ranger Suarez has left the Phillies, signing a 5-year deal with the Red Sox. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report, more mayhem in Minneapolis. Iran nixes public hangings and splashdown in the Pacific.
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Not that long ago, a collection of voices like Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Chris Hitchens, and Ayaan Hirsi Ali were loudly proclaiming that God is a delusion and that religion is a poison. However, in a recent essay for the Claremont Review of Books, Matthew Schmitz argued that the new atheism, which surged after 9/11 and decried religion as the source of conflict and cultural decline, has now largely run its course. In fact, in its place, he contends, there's a new theism. Now, the critical next question, of course, is which God are we talking about in this new theism? Because dabbling with theism is certainly not the same as encountering Yahweh, the God that actually exist. C.S. Lewis once described his shock in encountering a living God after first dabbling in some kind of vague spirituality. Quote, "But God himself, alive, pulling at the other end of the cord, that's quite another matter." Well, true faith is not merely belief in a spiritual realm. Rather, it's built on 3 baseline eternal truths that ground the Christian worldview. First, that God exists. That assumption distinguishes theism from atheism, materialism, and agnosticism. Scripture, of course, begins with this assumption, that in the beginning God. Secondly, God's eternal and personal. A God that is a force is to be used, not known. But if God is eternal and a person, then his will is ultimate. Third, God has chosen to reveal himself, ultimately in Jesus Christ. That assumption distinguishes Christianity from every other religion, but especially other theistic religions. As Jesus prayed in John 17, this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. Now, there are good reasons to hope that a new theism is indeed emerging, and that there's a renewed openness to religion in American life. What that means is that there is an opportunity, a calling for those of us who do know God beyond just some vague spirituality or utilitarian appeal. So we must use this moment to point others to Jesus Christ, the fullness of God in bodily form, the only one who will and can, as the Bible tells us, make all things new. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint.
All right, thank you, John. Outside next, Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Life weather forecast. Our call for this afternoon, cloudy with areas of snow and blowing snow, with flurries in areas well away from the lakes. Could be another couple, 3 inches, though, easily. In Lake Enhance and Lake Effect snow. Temperatures this afternoon mostly in the teens, wind chills at and below zero. Some localized lake snow tonight, otherwise partly cloudy with flurries, low temps, mid-single digits to mid-teens. Tomorrow and Saturday, mostly cloudy snow at times. High temps tomorrow approaching 30. We're in the 30s on Saturday.
All right, thank you, Kevin. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Great to have you with us today. It's Thursday, January 15th, and here's our top story. Another ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis. Mayor Jacob Frey.
This is an impossible situation that our city is presently being put in.
A federal officer last night shot an illegal immigrant from Venezuela in the leg during a targeted traffic stop after being attacked with a snow shovel. Reporter Alexis McAdams says it's not easy being ICE in the Twin Cities.
They've got people that are doxing them, targeting them, and literally sending their location before they even get out of the car. They blow a whistle, they tell people where to go. ICE watch groups have a signal group chat, we're told by sources, where they text exactly what's going on with these active operations. And what DHS and ICE is saying is, whether you like this or not, we're enforcing the law. They don't think of it as political here. So they said they did this under Democrats. They've done the job under Republicans. These people are in the country legally, according to ICE, that had criminal rap sheets, according to investigators, attacked one of the ICE agents with some type of weapon.
Protesters threw rocks and fireworks at police following the shooting, which happened 12 miles from where Renee Good was killed in an ICE-involved shooting last week. Retired FBI agent Jason Patrick.
It's one thing to encourage folks to protest peacefully, but when you encourage folks to interfere, that's something different. It's well-established law since the 1950s that Congress passed that the Immigration Act is legal. And so these agents are there enforcing federal law, whether people like it or not.
Patrick says the dehumanizing of ICE agents has got to stop, or more lives will be put in danger. Iran said today plans to hang a 26-year-old protester at a prison outside Tehran have been scrapped. The country's communicated to President Trump there have not been any more killings of demonstrators since a violent uprising began a few weeks ago.
We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping and there's no plan for executions. So I've been told that on good authority. We'll find out about it. I'm sure if it happens, we'll all be very upset.
Thousands of anti-government protesters were shot dead by Iran's paramilitary forces. Thousands more have been detained. Germany, Sweden, and Canada are planning to send troops to Greenland. This comes amid President Trump's threats to take control of the self-governing Danish territory.
President Trump insists the U.S. needs Greenland for national security, and he's threatened to take it by force if necessary.
We're doing the Golden Dome. We're doing a lot of things, and we really need it.
The Golden Dome is a missile defense system that could be positioned on the island, a key location to take out Russian ballistic missiles fired at the U.S. The self-governing territory of Denmark is also rich in rare earth minerals.
Lisa Jang reporting. Vice President Vance and Secretary of State Rubio met yesterday with Danish leaders at the White House to talk more about the possible sale of Greenland. 4 astronauts from the International Space Station are back on Earth after a successful splashdown early this morning in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego.
Dragon, SpaceX, we see splashdown.
The crew had to abort their 6-month mission by 6 weeks due to illness with one of the astronauts. Their departure from the ISS marks the first time in the 25-year history of the orbital outpost that a NASA mission was cut short because of health reasons. Whole milk is returning to school lunch cafeterias. The president's just signed a bill that overturns Obama-era limits on higher fat content in milk. Schools participating in the National School Lunch Program can still offer skim milk or 1% and 2% milk if they so desire. President Trump's health secretary, Robert Kennedy Jr., apparently does not approve of his boss's diet. Here's what he told a popular podcaster this week.
He eats really bad food, which is McDonald's and Diet Coke. He drinks the Diet Coke all times. I don't know how he's alive.
Kennedy says despite Trump's poor food choices, the president's in, quote, incredibly good health must be all those Big Macs. You're listening to The Noon Report for Thursday on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and with me today, Patients' Rights Action Fund's Jessica Rogers. We're talking the March for Life. The March for Life takes place this month in thousands of cities across the United States. It'll happen in Washington, D.C. on January 23rd, and Syracuse hosts the longest-running March for Life in New York this Saturday in less than 48 hours. This year, they're not only taking a stand against abortion, but fighting for all life. Front and center is the Medical Aid in Dying Act, New York's looming new doctor-assisted suicide law. Jessica, you're delivering the keynote address. Once this is signed, and Kathy Hochul says the verbal agreement is already finished, the bill is a done deal. We're no longer preventing it. The March for Life hits differently this year in the Empire State.
Unfortunately, we have to shift now. In the past, we were talking about how to stop assisted suicide, and now our focus moves to how do we protect our loved ones under this new policy in New York State.
For those that have never been to a March for Life before, what can they expect?
Well, the marches certainly get pretty large. I'm always hopeful that we'll have hundreds of people there, and I know that people are really passionate about this. This year, with all of the news coverage around assisted suicide, I'm expecting a pretty significant turnout. People should start at Armory Square, and then the march is just going to be from Armory Square down to the county courthouse. All told, I don't imagine that we'll be there more than an hour standing in the cold, and you're going to be walking for part of that time. It'll get the blood flowing. So wear your warm coats and come and join us.
What will you be speaking on?
I'm speaking on assisted suicide. So my goal is to educate everyone who's out there on what this bill actually does and how to protect our loved ones in the face of legal assisted suicide. This is a battle that people have been waging in New York State for a decade now, that it's been held back. And I really truly believe that the governor was conflicted. She returned it back to the legislature with significant alterations, which tells me that she knows assisted suicide is dangerous. And I hope that the crowd walks away with an understanding of how to talk about this issue and how to care for their loved ones who are at risk.
We're at the point where Governor Hochul is refusing to reverse course on this Medical Aid in Dying Act, and you hit the nail on the head with that. We have to educate people on how to protect themselves, how to communicate. How are you training people?
The very first thing that people need to be comfortable doing is talking to their doctor and talking to the doctors of anyone that they're caring for. If you have aging parents or grandparents, or you have anyone in your life that you help be an advocate for, make sure that they have a doctor that does not participate in assisted suicide. If you have a loved one receiving palliative care or hospice care, question them. Make sure that they don't participate in assisted suicide. That is how we can continue to hold the line and continue to make sure that medical professionals opt out and that they know that their patients want them to opt out.
The word that gets thrown around a lot is compassion. The Medical Aid in Dying Act. It's this kindness to another person to help them take their life, and it's evil.
Truly. I always push back against using their phrasing. I never say medical aid in dying because A, it's not what this is. And two, medical aid in dying is such a broad term that it can encompass everything from palliative care to euthanasia. I always use assisted suicide because that is what it is, whether or not people want to hear it. And it is also the most precise term. I think that it comes across as compassion in a very cursory glance. And the second you look at it a little harder, you realize that it's truly dangerous and discriminatory. And frankly, it's ableist. Everyone who qualifies for assisted suicide is actually considered disabled under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And these laws are inherently certainly a violation of the ADA. There's nothing compassionate about abandoning your patients when they're at their most vulnerable, and that's what assisted suicide policy does.
Is life a losing battle in the Empire State with this bill passing?
I don't think so. I think that on Saturday, we're going to witness how many people care, and that's really what makes the difference. You know, you can have a policy on the books, and that's terrible. We don't want discriminatory policy in the law, certainly. But at the end of the day, if we can come together and care for our neighbors and care for our loved ones so that no one ever feels the need to end their own life, that's what's going to make the difference, no matter what the governor does.
Learn more at patientsrightsaction.org and marchforlife.org.
Thank you, Sarah. That's pro-life activist Jessica Rogers for this week's edition of Faith Under Fire, airing Thursdays during the Noon Report on Family Life.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Low pressure in northern New York has brought winter weather back to our region in the form of heavy snow across parts of western New York, especially the Niagara frontier, and bitter cold throughout. In the wake of that system, there'll be some localized lake flakes tonight and tomorrow, and a new system arrives Sunday, Monday with a fresh batch of cold and some snow. Our call for this afternoon, cloudy with areas of snow and blowing snow, with flurries in areas well away from the lakes. Could be another couple, 3 inches, though, easily, in Lake Enhanced and Lake Effect snow. Temperatures this afternoon mostly in the teens, wind chills at and below zero. Some localized lake snow tonight, otherwise partly cloudy with flurries, low temps, mid-single digits to mid-teens. Tomorrow and Saturday, mostly cloudy snow at times. High temps tomorrow approaching 30. We're in the 30s on Saturday.
All right, great work as always at the Weather Center. Thank you, Kevin. Finally, at noon today, a century ago, everybody wore hats. Every day, for whatever reason, not so much anymore. In fact, less than 20% of us don a cap on a regular basis. That's too bad because today is National Hat Day. Correspondent Bree Tennis.
Back in the day, a man or woman wouldn't dream of leaving the house without a hat. Fedoras, bowlers, and newsboy caps for men, veils and feathers for women. Then the 60s came and we adopted a more casual style and hats fell out of fashion. Today, baseball caps dominate, but they lack the style of previous generations. In modern times, we really get one day to show off a fancy hat. That comes up May 2nd at the Kentucky Derby. I'm Bree Tennis.
All right, thank you, Bree. Time for me to take off my news cap and say so long. That's our world, the world we live in. Thursday, January 15th. I'm Bob Price. Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.